Death and I. From birth, I've always known its name. Born, bound to be together, I'd say. Why isn't my shadow just a quiet silhouette? Whether I sit here or hide somewhere, at every turn she seems to catch my breath. What is it between me and death? She haunts me, maybe, or shelters me, I wonder, then holds me hostage, static, showing me my own mortality. She never lets me go. She is everywhere I look. In the misstep on the staircase, under the bus, crossing the street, between the cuts of the kitchen's knife, even in the water down the wrong pipe. Death is in the mirror, not in its sharp edges, but in my reflection. Are we the same? Will she let me live? Will she ever leave? Anything could be the death of me. Maybe then I'll finally be free. Or will I then be hers forever? Whether I stand fearless or cry terrified, she walks beside me, tracing my path. What is it between me and death? My mortal words collide. What was thought makes no sense. What I said before was outgrown. What if my last words get lost in relevance? I tread carefully with each step. In the shade, I shield myself from death. She keeps her eye on the clock. When it's time, it's time. What is it between me and death? Welcome to the Memento Mori Lab podcast. I'm Mayra, your host and aspiring writer friend. Halloween is coming up, so I thought the topic would be appropriate. The name of the episode is already a trigger warning on its own, I hope, but I will say that this episode might be somewhat heavy and a tad more depressing than the others, depending on your point of view, obviously. I know that many people cringe at the mention of death and quickly want to move on to something more cheerful. That's true for me too. I don't want to talk about people dying. This is not what this episode is about. The idea here is to take a more philosophical / thought-provoking route to explore mortality. The poem we heard at the beginning tells you a bit of my relationship with death. As humans, we are very aware of our mortality, but I think our brains intentionally forget about it throughout the day so that we can function. Otherwise, we would go completely insane. I feel like I'm halfway there though, because I think about death a lot. I've read about the term called catastrophizing. I think that's how you say it. And I have this whole catastrophizing cycle in my head that leads me to see my potential death countless times per day. As I leave my house and walk to the bus stop, for example, if my foot slides a little on the wet sidewalk, instantly my mind goes to the following scenario. She slipped while walking, fell into a pile of leaves, which should have been harmless, but some steel rod was left over from some construction. Unfortunately, it pierced right through her chest, and she couldn't make it. If my foot slides in the middle of the street, it's a different story. There wouldn't need to be any steel rods around. Instead, a car would be driving by too fast and run her over. Me. It's like those old horror movies, like Premonition, like the deaths were so unlikely. I think that's how my mind works. However improbable, death is the only certainty we have in life. Nothing else can ever be as certain as death. You know, like when you're watching any mildly good movie or TV show and you're always thinking, okay, this is gonna go bad. Maybe now or now. And if it's like a romance or romantic comedy or something, you keep saying to yourself, I think they're gonna get together now. Or now. Or no, now. I think that's me with my own mortality. Now. Nope, still here. And I think I'm not alone in this. With this whole pandemic, I added another set of imaginary scenarios to my catastrophizing booklet. But here is the thing. This time the possibility seemed a bit more tangible in my mind, and working from home meant I had more time to contemplate my demise. And then something magical happened. I wrote a poem, average like all others, but that poem, which I think it's one of my favorites that I've written, made me realize that I was not afraid of death itself. Maybe I'll read it first and then we'll talk about it. Here it is. Tomorrow is gone. What if I died today? No warning, no time to prepare, no quick bucket list check. Would the flashback of this life make me proud to call it mine? Would I even want to raise my hand and claim it to be mine? Or would it be a parade of I could haves and what ifs? I will take a wild guess. The regret would be overwhelming. So much so I would rather go once and for all without looking back. The sorrow would be so that the aches in my body would feel like a breeze. The pain of the past would take over my soul and I wouldn't be able to look away. This time I would have to face it. All my life, the fear of failure got me stuck in an in-between of being good, not great. The fear of rejection and the need for validation made me never see things through. Rough sketches without finished pieces, first drafts without final revisions, beginnings without ends. Saying to myself I would come back to it later, but knowing deep down that I would never. Being productive while producing absolutely nothing. Now all my chances of final finished ends are gone with tomorrow. At least I won't spend tomorrow overthinking things I could do but will never get around to. Tomorrow I won't worry that this creativity was wasted on me and how I let down the muses and the gods. Tomorrow I won't feel like I'm wasting any more of my time. Tomorrow is gone and so is time. What a relief. Finally, a vacation away from this voice in my head. The voice that keeps telling me nothing I do is good enough or ever enough. You should have started sooner. You should have tried harder. You should be better. If only you hadn't quit, but you did. You quit everything you start as soon as things get a bit hard. Your natural talents can only get you so far, my dear. This is my final draft, my only final draft. It drifts away, lost at sea, in this ocean of regret and scrutiny. The silver linings keep me afloat. They always have. Tomorrow that voice won't have anything left to say. Yet, waiting for tomorrow, I think about all the things I could have done. What I've failed to realize all these years is, same as yesterday, tomorrow doesn't exist. All my fears that I fought so hard to avoid came true. I've failed by not trying. My own judgment rejected me. I've wasted all my time by fearing wasted time. I could go on for days, but I don't have days to go on for. I don't have any to spare. With whatever time I have left, I ask myself, will I be remembered? A loving wife, daughter, and friend, I hope. What else? What did I leave behind? Did I matter outside these lines? If only I had a bit more time. This poem, along with other pieces of writing and explorations, became one of the catalysts for me to dive deep into my creativity. I don't think we are afraid of dying as much as we are afraid of not living enough. But this is the catch. Living enough is not only about longevity, it's about each day. I started looking inwards and backward. All I could see were regrets everywhere. And that's why death haunted me. Then I started writing more, creating more, and Guess what? Now death haunts me even more. I don't want my life to be over because now I'm having more fun. All jokes aside, it feels like my imaginary scenarios now involve more accidental injuries than death. The philosopher Epicurus would say, quote, "Death is nothing to us," unquote. He argued that when we exist, death doesn't, and when death exists, we don't. So there's no reason to fear it. I like that because his philosophy revolved a lot around attaining happiness, and obsessing over death was not helping me at all. But who's to say what living enough means or what will bring happiness to each of us? I guess it's more of a sensation. When we feel it, we feel it. We feel that the day mattered, though some people might take that to a more hedonistic side of things, of just seeking pleasure and a fuck tomorrow attitude. I've tried that for many years and it definitely does not work long term, at least not for me. I feel like it robs us from feeling all the feelings and experiencing a full life. The counterbalance to fearing death is to start living, not just breathing or eating or sleeping. It's doing something creative, doing something for you, making connections with other people, like doing something real, I guess. In Stoicism, they contemplate death a lot as a means to do their best each day, and I really like that. That poem I wrote ended up being an indirect Stoic meditation, and it lit a fire in me to start doing something, like anything. That's why this podcast is called Memento Mori Lab. I've talked a bit about this in the first episode, I think, but Memento Mori means remember, you will die, or you must die. It's a stoic reminder of our mortality, and that should be motivation enough for us to do anything we want to do. Sure, some people might see it as a negative or somber way of approaching things, but for me, it's inspirational in a way because death is the only certainty we have. Everything else is not certain. This lab was my excuse to apply my creativity somewhere each day, and it makes me feel more alive than my 9-to-5 ever could. I still need to pay my bills and whatnot, so obviously I'm glad that my 9-to-5 exists. Nonetheless, if we talk about living enough, we need to find what makes us happy, fulfilled, or whatever the word you want to use. Also, contemplating our mortality makes many things a lot less relevant, and it helps you see what is truly important in life. We are so terrified of making a fool of ourselves in the most random scenarios like social media, in front of people we never met. And we want to show these random people how well we're doing, or how much we have, or how far we've come. And for what? Would any of that matter if death was imminent? I don't think so. Would it matter if we were immortal? I don't know. So instead of an answer, let's just go to another poem. Never to now. The pendulum swings from now to never. Death stands by, imminent and distant. The pendulum swings from never to now. I'm fragile and invincible, afraid and immortal. My days are numbered, but not written. The calendar sweeps through dates, eager to find finished lines and sharp turns. Death comes too soon and not fast enough. Missteps remind me of death's breath, cold and near, hitting the back of my neck. I swear she's always lurking, waiting for the pendulum to swing one last time. It seems to me like that pendulum, we think we are invincible at times, and we think we have all the time in the world. But then we are reminded that might not be the case. Everything matters, but also nothing matters, you know? At a moment's notice, the pendulum swings from very important to not important at all. Either way, whether we have 80 more years to live or not, living enough depends on what we choose to do each day. Depends on us finding the caveats of happiness here and there. Depends on us. I believe that art has that power of bringing us joy, especially making art. But schools and whatnot made us believe that we had to do things a certain way or have quote unquote talent. Otherwise, you should try something else. For some reason, stick figures were wrong and perspective, shading, and proportions were right. Paint the Mona Lisa or don't even bother. What we often forget is that being the best at something is not a requirement to have fun. Hobbies are a huge part of life too. We can enjoy doing things with no monetary reward, and it's okay if we suck at them. Drawing, writing, painting, singing, playing instruments, crafting, whatever it is that enchants you, is worth exploring regardless of your abilities. Some people find their art in less artsy things, so there's that possibility too. My point here is that the notion of our mortality can serve us as inspiration to do things we care about in life. Do the things that make us happy, even if it's only 30 minutes of an otherwise tough day. What is it the one thing that you can do today that would make you happier? What is it that one thing that you can do that brightens your day and that makes you feel like you're alive, you know? And not just living every day like it's the same thing. I can't wait to hear from you. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. The handles are in the show notes. Tell me what you thought about this episode, because I know it's a little bit different and, well, I guess all episodes have this kind of somber look to life, but it's all with good intention to hopefully spark some motivation for all of us to do something that makes us happy. I guess that's my point. And by the way, on Instagram, I also share some illustrations and other, let's call it fun stuff. So if you get a chance, follow me there at memento.mori.lab. And here's a haiku I'd like to leave with you today. Life and death, mundane. Some died and lived forever. I forgot to live. This is our episode for today. Thanks for hanging around till the end. See ya.